he'd hit that, and they'd have to go around the corner. I see one guy, I thought they killed him. He hit them bucking tooth so stinking hard.
Welcome, my name is Doug Simcox, and this is Beyond the Chutes as presented by ParaSight Systems. In this episode, I continue my interview with Mike Swearingen, the four-event cowboy from upstate New York. In this episode, we dig into Mike's memory bank about some very specific rodeos, people that he has met, and experiences that he has had. And you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Search for Beyond the Chutes and follow us. I hope that you enjoyed this third episode about the New York all-around cowboy, Mr. Mike Swearingen. So, Mike, good to have you back on the phone. I'm going to just throw some random topics out at you. Let me hear your feedback on these. So, last week, or 2 weeks ago, I guess it was, the PRCA Hall of Fame inducted into the hall the Cowtown Rodeo out of New Jersey. What do you know about that, Mike? What's your memories of Cowtown?
Well, I never went to a lot of Cowtown rodeos, mostly because of the way the PRCA wouldn't allow cowboys to belong to any other association besides the PRCA until I believe it was like maybe 86 or 87, somewhere in that time frame. So I hadn't gone to Cowtown prior to that. I'd heard a lot of stories about it when Mr. Howard was running them. Joe Farley and some of them boys had started going to them, and boy, they come back and tell some stories. Now, I'm a kind of a half a people person, you know. I like people. I don't like to get yelled at, and, you know, things like that.
Wait a minute. Did you say half a person people? Is that what you said?
Well, half a people person.
Oh, I'm sorry. That sounds better, I guess.
But, you know, and I heard, you know, Howard, and I had been around a lot of different contractors that were kind of gruff, you know, but they were good people, you know, and, you know, you get through some of that gruffness but I wasn't too interested. And then Joe kind of tried to talk me into getting my RCA card, and I had thought about it, and I hadn't started traveling a whole bunch. This was prior, probably in the mid-'70s, early to mid-'70s, shortly after I got out of high school or somewhere in that area. And I don't know, I got the paper out, I got the PRCA newspaper out, and I got to looking at the results. Now, I hadn't started traveling very far yet at that time. So I'm pretty much staying up here in the Northeast, you know, Virginia, down in the Delaware, you know, the Delmarva area. And I just got to look at the paper, and I see the bareback riding paid $47 to win first, you know, and I said, I'm winning some of these Delmarva, ARA, whatever it was, right about to turn when the association kind of turned, and I'm winning a couple hundred. And, you know, in the bareback ride. And that's one example, you know, and at that point in time, bareback riding was my mainstay. I was you know, a better bareback rider than I was anything else at that point. So I just I said, well, that would be dumb, you know. Go down there and then put up with a guy that's yelling at you and, you know, swinging the gates open on you if you're not ready. And, you know, some of the war stories that I heard. And so I decided not to go to too many of them. But once the PRCA opened up, and I did get my permit, and I did go to Cowtown, one of the first ones, and Howard happened to still be there. Now, I think Grant had already been running it. Grant and Betsy had already bought it, and they were running it, but Howard was there, and he was a pickup man out there, and I'd heard all kinds of things. He'll, you know, you got to get off, or he'll pull out and leave you, and, you know, just things like that. So I was on my A game. I was ready. I wasn't going to make any mistakes, you know, just go out there, do my job, you know, and so I went out there, and I had a great rodeo. I think I won the bareback riding, I placed in the bronc riding. rode my bull. I placed at least 3 of the 4 events that I worked there.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a heck of a night. And I come back, and after the rodeo, I went up, and Howard was there, and I went up to him, and I said, well, Mr. Harris, stuck my hand out, introduced myself, and shook his hand and told me, you put on a good rodeo. Well, hell, boy, it ain't like I ain't done one in 50 years. I said, well, I just wanted to thank you,
Yeah.
And it turned around and walked away. And, I started going to, and then I got to know Grant and Betsy. And I'll tell you what, that place, they have put so much time and effort and work into it to make it what it is. They deserve every ounce of recognition that they got for that. They're hardworking, good people that I enjoy being around Grant and Betsy. I mean, they're just fun people, and I just had a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. All right, I'm going to go to another PRCA Hall of Fame inductee, Night Jacket of the Bar J Rodeo Company, bareback bronc. I think he did the NFR like 2000 through 2006, but a lot of offspring. And his mother was a bronc that they had picked up, I think, in 1974 from a riding stable called Nightmare. What do you know about the Night Jacket, Nightmare bloodlines?
Nightmare was bucking when I was riding bareback horses.
Okay.
In the IRA. And I don't ever recall getting on her. I don't think I ever drew her in the bareback ride at all. I've seen her buck, and she was a bucker.
Mm-hmm.
She was just a good, she just loved doing her job,
Okay.
And you stub a toe on her, she was going to throw you on the ground hard. And it was when I was just, in that era when he bought her. Now, you got to remember, back in 74, I hadn't really cracked out very hard yet. I was gone to a few of them. But I hadn't gone to too many Bar J's until, 77, 78, 79, somewhere in there is when I started going to them. So but she was still campaigning and still bucking. And, there again, the Zinzers deserve every. Jim is one tough rascal now. Let me tell you, he's a cowboy and he's tough, and he just loved bucking horses, and he loved his horses. And great bull man, and so I was tickled to death for him, and that's they deserve it. He got out of business. I was really absolutely dumbfounded when he sold out, because he just enjoyed doing rodeos and putting them on, but it's like everything else, you start getting a little longer in the tooth and things start to come a little bit harder. And whether that had anything to do with it or not, I don't know, but I watched that man put a rodeo on out in the Midwest, drive to Attica, and probably the worst weather that Attica's had in years, and just poured rain, mud right up to your knees half the time. Did 5 performances in a row, started Friday night, 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, and then turn right around, load up, and then drive back to Michigan. And just after that Sunday night performance at Attica, I don't care. I couldn't hardly drive the 12 miles back home. Right. That was so wore out, and, and he just, so he worked hard at what he did, and, and then having the brains and the ability to put them horses together, and keep them going. And one little funny story about that, I remember they had a little bareback rider come out of Quebec up towards St Tite area. I met him up there when we were going to St Tite up there, and Serge Richard, good little bareback rider, tough. And I mean, when he nodded his head, he started spurring, and it didn't matter. He wasn't going to quit spurring until he either hit the ground or the whistle blew, Yeah. And his first rodeo back here, I told him, come on, get in the truck with me. We're going to go to some rodeos. We were down. Jim put a rodeo on down in Meadville, Pennsylvania. And we went to that. Serge gets out of the truck, and we go over to the pens, and his eyes are pretty big. Mike, he's looking over these horses, in the pen. Mike, where's the bareback horses at? I said, you're looking at them, Serge. No, them the saddle box. They's too big. I said, no, Serge, them are the bareback horses. Wait till you see the saddle box.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. So Serge, he couldn't believe it, but, yeah. He liked good, big, stout horses, and, he did a good job with them.
Okay. Now, you made a comment, and thank you for sharing everything. You made a comment that he was a bull man. What does that mean? For our listeners, what does that mean?
He just knew what kind of bulls to look for as far as their physical appearance that would make a good bucket bull.
I see.
And he could just look over herd of bulls, and he had told me one time, we were talking about it, because I'd asked him, I said, he got a lot of young bulls here, and some are rank dudes, and some, are just really good to get on. And I like to pick stock contractors' brains. Dave Morgan down in Florida was another one was like that. So I just enjoyed talking to them and finding out what they were looking for, because at one time I thought I wanted to be a bull contractor, raise some bulls and stuff. Yeah. So I'm kind of half picking their brains a little bit, And Jim told me, he says, I like to look at them and look at their belly and they would have to have a tight sheath and small sack. And that was one of the things he looked for in the feature. And I said, well, why is that? He said, well, the older they get, and they're just going to start swinging, and it gets, so it's going to cause them to, you have that extra weight swinging around there. It's going to cause something a little in their bucking ability and their kicking ability. So that was just one little tidbit that I learned from Jim that was one of the things he looked for. And he didn't necessarily look for mean, haughty, hooking dudes, even though he had some.
Yeah.
But that's not really what he looked for. He looked, at the physical abilities and went from there.
Okay. Okay. And you said that Jim was the stock contractor at Attica?
He did it for a year.
1 year.
I kind of helped try. It was a mess. I don't know. I guess I don't know how to say all this, but anyway, I belonged to the Attica Rodeo Association as a member. And I was going hard. Well, they were having kind of a little bit of, they had contractor in, and it was just kind of it was just rodeo. And he was getting a lot of cowboys, but he wasn't getting any talent, any quality. I could see it starting to go downhill a little bit as far as contestant quality-wise. And the kids that were coming and getting on, that's, they weren't there to ride. They weren't there to rodeo. They were to, for the party and all that. But anyway, so I told him, I said, if you could get Bar J to come in, I will help try to get sponsorships. And I said, Bar J is going to cost more, but he's going to bring some world champions. You're going to have some talented cowboys here. And they kind of went round and round about that. And I said, and the other thing, outside of the price of the contract is going to be a bit more. But I said, another thing that Jim will make mandatory has to be at least 1,000 added so he can get some cowboys here.
I see.
Well, at the time, they were only adding maybe 500.
Oh, okay.
So that kind of threw one. We ain't going to afford that. And I said, well, I'll tell you what. I said, if you let me handle it and get some sponsors and handle the sponsorships, I will guarantee you the difference in the 500. So if you add the 1,000, I'll guarantee I can come up with enough sponsorships to cover the extra 500 for each event.
I see.
So they decided they went with them. And he put out, like I said, that year he was here. Well, awful. The crowds were down, of course, and he bucked, stuff bucked, and guys weren't riding very good because it was rainy and wet. It was just one of them rodeos. It wasn't the best rodeo in the world. Jim actually had signed a 2-year contract with him, and they reneged on one and hired another contractor back in underneath him. And
oh, jeez.
It was a mess for a while. It worked out, and Jim wound up going on, But
okay.
Anyway,
okay.
that's all there was to that. So,
do you remember what year that was?
I really don't.
Okay.
It was probably in the mid '80s.
Mid '80s. Okay.
Somewhere in the mid '80s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So as we have segued to Attica, a few weeks ago we put out a quick podcast on some folks sharing some memories, and hard to believe this was their 65th annual year of putting that rodeo on. Next year's 66 years, for goodness sakes. Do you remember the first time you went there? I mean, just to watch. Do you remember going there as a young person?
Oh yeah, we were kids when we went.
Yeah.
It probably. We moved to Leicester in about 62-ish, I think. So it was probably about that time that we had gone, because when we lived in Lima, we went to Lima Rodeo. I remember that, and heck, Sam was just a baby, so I was probably about 5 or 6 years old when we were going to Lima Rodeo over there and watching that. So we moved, it wasn't too much longer after that. We moved to Leicester, and then Leicester was quite a bit closer to Attica. So I would imagine it was probably, 63, 64, somewhere in that area, I would think.
Yeah, so 63, 64, you're what, 5 years old, 6 years old?
Born in 54.
54,
so,
okay, almost, yeah, so 9 or 10 then.
Yeah.
Okay, 9 or 10. And do you remember the first time you went? Did anything just really catch your attention, or?
They had 2 things that we would get in. They had, at that age, I think, well, actually 3. They had junior steer riding, which I got, and I don't know if it was the very first year I went. I don't remember that. But they used to have a grease pig chase for the kids, and they used to have a calf scramble.
Grease pig chase?
Yes.
Okay.
They would bring some little pigs in that probably weighed about 40, 50 pounds and greased them all up with lard. And then bring the kids in and put them in a circle, turn them little pigs loose, and then have at it.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. And what? You just had to capture them? You just had to hold them?
Yeah. Catch them and hold on to them and take them back to the judge.
Oh, my goodness.
And you talk about...
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's ever grabbed a hold of one of them little pigs without grease on them, but they're squealing, screaming, squiggling, wiggling, and we used to have the grease pig chases.
Okay.
And that was one of the, so I remember doing that a couple of years, and then, then I got into the junior steer riding a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. And then the calf scramble, of course, as you said.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So when was the first time? Maybe it's junior steer riding. No. Let's move up. When was the first time you competed? In the adult events. So whether that's bareback, saddle broncs, bulls, steer wrestling, whatever. Do you remember the very first time you paid the entry fee and you're drawn with everybody?
I can't tell you exactly what year it was. We could probably figure out pretty close to what year it was, but I think I was probably 14 or 15, somewhere right in there. I don't think I had started high school or right about, I think I was probably in junior high.
Okay.
And I had actually gone and entered the bareback riding, and I don't think the first year I went, I don't think I entered the saddle bronc riding, but it wasn't maybe the following year after that.
Okay.
But I think I entered the bareback riding and probably bull riding. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. And of all the years, so this sounds like you started competing in 1968, right? 14 years of age. Any year that just stands out for whatever reason? Maybe it's competitors coming through that caught your attention, big names, big bulls, big broncs, best rides, anything that just stood out where you said, these are cool things.
Well, there are a couple things that were a lot of the growing pains that any rodeo association would have. They had a stock contractor from Connecticut, Bud Chase, and he was an IRA contractor, and he was putting rodeos on. And I know, well, I've got some pictures from like 72 and 73 when he was putting them on back then, but I don't know. Bud didn't come back, and I don't know if whether he went out of business, because shortly I think they went out of business. So whether he had health problems, I have no idea. But anyway, they were having trouble getting a contractor to come in there and do it. Well, they had got my dad, of course, was on the board, on the committee, and he said, "Well, we'll just put one on." And Dad still had a bunch of horses, and I'm not 100% sure. There was a little bit of trouble going on with the associations at that time. There was a little bit of a feud between, and just like the PRCA not wanting anybody else to belong to the association, they had a couple rules in that if it was one association's rodeo, and they were already had that rodeo, and another association came and took it over the following year, the members of the association that originally had it were blacklisted from going to it.
Wow.
The next year.
Wow.
So there's quite a bit of feuding going on between the associations at that time, and there were the rules in there. I bet you could pull rule books up now, and if they haven't updated them, they'd still be in there. But
really?
Yeah, they were.
Okay.
They were blackballing some of these associations, so that was a little bit of the problem. Also, maybe not so much of the contract, but anyway, get back to my dad. He's going to bring some horses, and they got some bulls. I had an Uncle Jack that was in a cattle dealer, and that's kind of how things started with the Little Britches rodeos back when Dad was putting them on. We had the horses, and he called my Uncle Jack up, and, hey, bring me a load of bulls, killer bulls and stuff. So my Uncle Jack, he always had, he wheeled and dealed with the cattle, and so he'd bring the bulls and stuff. So we kind of did that at Attica one year, and then they kind of put it on. The Cowboys came, and and me and Sam and everybody. So we kind of, and Dave Wheeler still kind of every once in a while says the Swearingen family kind of saved this rodeo from that year. But whether we did or didn't, it didn't matter, but we did what we could do to. So my dad would always bring a couple, 3 horses that he thought, if they were a little bit rowdy or something. And yeah, I think this one will buck. Well, one year, and I don't think it was that year that he put the rodeo on, had all the horses there, but one year he brought some 2 or 3 horses to try out, and he put them in the draw. Because it might have been that year, because there just wasn't anything for it. But I got a picture. I gave it to my dad for a Christmas present one time. He brought a horse there that I wound up winning the bareback riding on him.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know, and it was kind of tough to get into the 80 points at that point in time, but I got a picture of the horse. He's reared right straight up and down, and I'm sitting right in the middle of him. Well, the flank had fallen off, and I was still 80-some points on the horse.
Okay.
And so that was just one of the things, you win the rodeo, and I've had that happen a couple of times on different events, different places, but So Dad was pretty proud of that. He thought that was a pretty neat picture. And so, and that was one of the things there. And, I've done pretty good there. I've won the bull riding stuff a few times, but as far as, like you say, something sticking out in my mind, that was one of the things that was fun.
That's an incredible story. First off, I hadn't heard anything like that with the associations, and that would blacklist if, another association took over. So what were the association? Was Empire Rodeo Association going at that time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
and I believe that's what it was, is the Empire. And back then, the associations, now some of them will co-affiliate with each other.
Yes.
And they wouldn't back then,
Wow.
And you got to remember, way back then, PRCA was it wasn't even PRCA, it was the RCA back then.
Right.
And, they were the, if you were RCA cowboy, you were pretty much it. And then you had like the ERA and some of the guys that couldn't travel, couldn't go, that went in the association. So they started that, and which is fine.
Yeah.
It's good. They need someplace to go. But then they kind of took a lot of the rules out of the RCA book. That's where some of that came from. So, and I think it was to protect themselves so that they wouldn't, somebody wouldn't come in and take it away. But the IRA had just started creeping in a little bit, but Jason stuff started putting some of them on back here. And I don't even think back then, I didn't even know about, it would have been Delmarva at the time. That wasn't even heard of back here, back then. So it was either ERA, ORA up in Canada.
ORA.
We did a lot of that back and forth.
Yeah.
And then, so it was the same thing for them. Them guys that had the ORA cards, a lot of them had their ERA cards.
Yeah.
And then when it got taken over by the IRA, they didn't want them to come.
Wow.
So it was either ERA, RCA, ORA.
Okay.
That's pretty much all we had.
Okay. Thank you for that. That's great information. So the year that so Jim and Jack, your dad and your uncle, put on the rodeo, brought the stock. Was that an open rodeo, or did the ERA step in at that point?
That part of it I don't even know.
Okay.
Okay. I would think that it was probably just an open rodeo.
Oh, okay. Okay. And from your memory, good cowboys showed up, still drew well, and all that sort of thing?
Well, there was a whole nucleus of us back here that all rode. Me and Joe and Rob Cornball, and there was a bunch of us that, if there was a rodeo in New York State, especially up in this western half of the state, we were going to it. So we were all, the same bunch. And then there was the older group that helped us. Ward Mitchell, Gary Sikoria, Billy Bean. There was a bunch of those guys that had been going to rodeos and knew a little bit, and they were helping us young kids out. And so there was a transition, not really so much transition, but us new kids coming up and following their footsteps, and they're helping us, but they're still competing. Ed Phillips he rode bareback horses. I see him ride a couple bulls, but he kind of got out of the bull riding just about the time, I was getting old enough to really get started, but he still rode bareback horses. We traveled together quite a bit.
Okay.
Okay. And so you got guys like him that are showing kids like us what they knew and still hauling us.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a lot of what was going on back here at these rodeos. And then as these rodeos starting to get progressively better, then they started branching out and started going. And then you had guys that the Lima Rodeo, that they had their own stock pretty much, and they just kind of faded out when things really started going. They kind of backed out of it, but they didn't put any road shows on. But
right. Okay. And staying in that era, then. You brought up Joe Farley and some of the other riders. I talked to Joe, and he remembers traveling with you in 1973 or 1974 going to St. Tite. Now, for our listeners, St. Tite is in Quebec, Canada. It's up north of Three Rivers, and a town of about 4,000 people, and about 600,000 people come through their 10-day festival.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe when you started going up there in 73 or 74, if my memories, I think the rodeo started in like 68, if my memory is correct. And I can look on the website here, but that rodeo is coming up here the 8th through the 17th of September. Do you remember going up there for the first time? And before even that, how did you even learn about this rodeo? This is way up and gone.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of a interesting story in a way. We were going to Ontario, going to the Ontario rodeos, and we were doing good up there. You know, me and Joe and Vern and whoever was in the truck. I don't even think Sam was going with us yet. I don't think he was quite old enough to start hauling. I mean, he was old enough probably, but anyway, we went with Gary Sikoria and some of it. So we'd been going a bunch of them ORA rodeos, and we were doing good. We were all in the top 10 of our events, and somebody slipped up there. One of the cowboys slipped up and told me, he said, "You got to go to St. Tite up there. Go to St. Tite up." So that's paying pretty good up there. And some of the other cowboys didn't like that word getting out, you know.
Yeah.
But I saw. So I knew the stock contractor in Ontario, and he was taking the horses up Mel Wakefield.
Mm-hmm.
And he was another guy, a horse man and a half. He loved bucking horses. He had a horse that, that's a whole kind of another story, but he had a horse that he sold, I think Wayne Vold bought the horse, or Harry Vold bought the horse, Whiz Bang, and gave him a bunch of money for it. And that horse went to the NFR. And there was only two of us that ever rode that horse.
Oh, wow.
Back here in East. And a guy up in Ontario by the name of Ron Deschamps, and then me. And
Really?
I rode the horse. They let Ron beat me on that horse. I thought the stock contractor was going to beat them judges to death.
Oh, wow. Wow.
He was hot.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Mel had some good horses, and I loved going up there because you were going to get on something you could win first on or get thrown off, you know, at my caliber at that time. And so, you know, somebody told me about it, so I called Mel and asked him about it. And yeah, it was a pretty good one. So we went up there. Well, there was 5 of us, and I had an old Dodge, I think it was a Dodge Coronet. It was an old state car. When I bought the car, and this, I know I was still in high school. I think in 72 was when we went up there.
Okay.
It was 72 or 73 because I bought this old car. It was an old state car. It had like 110,000 miles on it when I bought it. It was a 4-door Dodge Coronet. It had a slant 6 in it, and so it got good mileage.
Yeah.
And
that's important.
5 of us filed in that thing.
Okay.
And we had no idea, absolutely no idea, except for it was way up north.
Yeah.
There was me, my brother Dan went with us that year.
Okay.
Joe, I think Vern Edwards went, and Rob Cornbaugh. Those are the 5 of us that went up there in that car.
Okay.
We get up to the border, you know, and go through the things, you know, take all our junk out, you know. And
Yeah.
They get out, and our trunk is absolutely packed, you know, but it's mostly our gear. We don't have very many clothes with us, you know. I mean, it's, you know, well, we drive, and it's probably 78 to 80 degrees, beautiful weather down here now. It's mid-September is when it goes on. So down here it's just beautiful fall day, perfect. So we just pack our junk and head off. And we get up there. I get up there, and it's probably about midnight, 1, 2 o'clock. It's in the middle of the night anyway.
Mm-hmm.
There ain't a soul around. We pull on the rodeo grounds, and there ain't a soul around. And I don't even know. I don't think we had any blankets or anything. We didn't take jackets. We didn't take nothing.
Right.
So we're trying to find. There ain't no motels around.
Yeah.
We pull in here, and so we just we got to do what we got to do. Well, I recognize the stock contractor's pickup. He's got a camper on the back of it, but nobody was in the front of the truck. So me and Rob crawl in the front of the truck, and I set up in the passenger side, and Rob, he sprawls out. And Rob's quite a bit taller than I was. He sprawls out, puts his head on my lap, and he goes to sleep. So we're sitting there, and I'm shivering all night long. Can't wait for daylight to show up. And everybody else, the other three, sat in the car, and they went to sleep in the car. When I got up in the morning, there was ice covering the mud puddles.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. Okay.
But so that was our first trip up there. And it was, we took a lot of money home.
Okay.
A lot of years.
So it had good added money. And was it in the same location as they rodeo today?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. It was the same arena. They've just done so much more work to it. Back then they didn't have covered grandstands. Yeah, usually it was a rainy season up there. It was rainy and cold and misty, and it's kind of getting fallish up there because they're, I don't know, quite a ways north from where we're at. So. Anyway.
Yeah.
And so they're probably, I would guess, probably 3 weeks farther, advanced towards winter than we were down here.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah, at least.
So,
yeah.
And we learned quite a bit about that. We all did good. And one little story about that, to give my brother Dan a lot of credit, the contractor had a bull that they hardly ever rode, called Mackenzie. And he was a butt-headed brindle. And he'd jump out there and he'd turn back, and he bucked. And if you rode him, you're going to win first. There ain't no doubt about it. But not very many guys back then rode him. Mm-hmm. And Danny drew him up there, and Danny didn't ride very much. I mean, Danny had a lot of natural ability. He was quick and that, but he just couldn't get his mind. And that's the only reason he didn't rodeo like with me and Sam. I think he just didn't have the mindset for it.
Yeah.
But anyway, but he had more natural talent than me and Sam had.
Okay.
As far as natural ability to set on a horse and things like that. But anyway, you gotta think back now. These Quebec rodeos were just getting started, so it's almost like a Wild West show up there. Nothing was organized. There was no association, and it was just, we're putting on a rodeo, and we got our judges out here. So the judge, you got your judges. The timer is in, the guy has a whistle, and he's standing down on the ground, so he starts a stopwatch when the gate opens, the animal comes out, and then he blows the whistle down on the ground. And so there's no horn. He just blows a whistle. Well, I'm standing there. Danny comes out, and this bull jumps out, and he turns back, and Danny sits in the middle of him like he's a tick on him. He don't lick. And this bull's going round and round and round. And I've been around long enough at that point to know 8 seconds, when the 8 seconds is up. Well, Danny's riding him about 10 seconds. So I turn over and look at the guy with the stopwatch. He ain't blowed the whistle. And he's standing there, and the whistle ain't even in his mouth. He's standing there with his mouth wide open watching his bull ride. And I'm hollering, blow the whistle, blow the whistle. And he looks down at the stopwatch, and then he grabs the whistle, sticks his mouth, and blows it. Well, it had been 12 or 14 seconds. He rode this son of a gun. And Danny finally come off. He got probably dizzy. When Danny kind of got thrown off, he blows the whistle. They no scored him.
Oh,
because
wow.
he didn't make the whistle.
Yeah.
He was supposed to win the bull ride.
Oh, my.
And so right then and there, I said, "Oh, we got to do some change in here." So,
Yeah, yeah.
but went back up, talked to the contractor, and and then from that point, things started progressively getting a little bit more professional.
Okay.
It was still quite a few years, and it was still a big Jim Cannon Wild West deal. And
Yeah.
actually, that first year we were up there,
Yeah.
which it was wild. Now I'm talking Wild West. This is Wild West East.
Right.
And these Frenchies, they're a tough bunch of. Them guys are rough. There was a motorcycle gang that come in there. Somebody got killed that night.
Oh,
Had a
my.
motorcycle guys, and the motorcycle gangs got at each other. And
In St. Tite, while you're there?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But it kind of happened late, and not at the rodeo, any
Okay.
part of the rodeo. It was afterwards, 2,
Yeah.
3 o'clock in the morning, a big
Oh,
fight,
my.
and
Oh, my.
all that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it was bad enough. My wife, my first wife, had a fair barrel horse. Nothing great, but I wouldn't let her go up for a long time because this is no place to take a woman. This
Okay.
is
Okay.
bad, bad stuff up here.
Yeah.
But it's so much different now. It's it's a lot better. But
Okay.
watching the game shows and stuff up there is a blast.
Yeah. So a couple of things. So 2 shows. Was it just 2 nights of rodeo?
No. Yes, it was.
It
okay.
was. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
2 and possibly 3.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know if it was Saturday, Sunday. I think Friday, Saturday. But anyway, there wasn't very many performances. But what they did do,
Yeah.
it's a 10-day festival.
Yeah.
It's always been a 10-day festival.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's always been a 10-day. And but during the middle of the week, so like Wednesday and Thursday, or Tuesday and Wednesday, Thursday, they would have jackpots, and they would have a bulldog and calf rope and jackpot and barrel race during the week. And so you could go to that. Later on, when I started steer wrestling, I would go up to that jackpot. And heck, we won a ton of money in them jackpots up there during the week. And so we would wind up going up there for, pretty close to 6 or 7 days.
Oh, you would?
And,
that long? Okay. Okay.
once the jackpot started. Now, the rough stock riding, that all stayed just on the weekend.
Okay.
But they would have the full rodeo on the weekend, but they would have all the other events going on, during the week. So,
Yeah. So where did you stay, Mike? Did you get that figured out? Where did you stay? No hotels, that sort of thing.
well, after the first year, we learned real fast that to make friends with some of the French guys up there, some
Okay.
of the locals.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And which, when we would go up there, American, you would think we were John Wayne walking in there. We could do anything we wanted to. American cowboy.
Oh, my.
Yay!
Oh, my. Oh, wow.
But I think the next year we found there was a couple camps up there, a couple day camps up there,
Mhm.
In the area that would close down in the fall. They were already closed, so they had these cabins that were open and for rent, and they weren't too far. 15, 20-minute drive tops, and the worst of it is, the first 5 minutes was good sand, so the last 15 minutes going back in these little old sand gravel roads going back into the camps, took a while. But
Mhm.
we would go and rent 2 or 3 cabins, and we did that for years up there. We'd go and rent, 5 or 6 cabins, and a whole
Okay.
bunch of us go up there, and we would just make ourselves at home up there. They were good people. We had to take our own food. They were all closed down, but
Yeah.
they rented us the cabins.
Oh,
And
I
it was
see.
some of the French people that made the connections for us to get that done.
Hmm.
And, so we did that for a long time.
Okay. And you talked about it being a Wild West show. Did they have the Pony Express, the exchange race, and the rescue race like they have today?
Oh, you bet.
They did. Even
it
back
was-
then.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Actually, they had more events than that. They had the hide race,
The what?
the cowhide race.
Cowhide Race. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
You talk,
Describe that for us, Mike.
they and most of their games, you know, outside of the rescue race, which just had the one barrel at the end, and you had the rider would swing up on as the guy turned the barrel and then go back. All the other ones, they had like 4 barrels set up or cones set up in the, you know, just off each corner of the arena back in so many feet.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had to stay on the outside of the cones. Well, the rescue race was with the one barrel, but the rider exchange race is where they would take a horse and run around the outside of the arena.
Yeah.
And when he got back to the other horse that was standing there, he'd bail off of his horse and over onto the other one.
Okay.
And then they would have a rider exchange race where, you know, they you know, they just had 2 or 3 that were kind of similar, but the hide race, the cowhide race, was kind of like the rescue race. They would go up. Now they would have the 2 barrels on the corners. Well, you had to change. The rider would go up through, and the guy on the ground had a lariat, and on the end of the lariat is a stiff old piece of cowhide. And what he would do is he would hand that end of the lariat to the guy, and he would dally off on a saddle.
Oh, my.
And then the guy would jump, you know, he would hang onto the rope, let the rope burn through his hand, but he'd hanging onto that cowhide as that horse is going about 40 mile an hour around that outside corner. He'd hit the end of that. He might not land for 50 feet.
Oh, my goodness.
He'd hit that, and they'd have to go around the corner. I see one guy, I thought they killed him. He hit them bucking chutes so stinking hard.
Oh, my.
Oh, yeah. They did that. They even, when the very first time or 2 I had before, I think they changed it. They had the scoop shovel race. And they even did this back home when I was a kid. I can remember, like at Lima Rodeo, they would, same kind of deal. They would take off, and you'd have a scoop shovel, and they would be sitting on the scoop shovel and pulling it with the horse with the lariat tied to it.
Right.
So they went from the scoop shovel race to the cowhide race.
Oh, so he was sitting on the cowhide like a sled?
Well, most of them would hang on to it and just be on their belly. They would jump on it with their belly and hang on to the rope.
Okay.
And so that's how they would get so much air time.
Yeah,
You know, it was like a magic carpet ride.
Oh, my gosh.
So the trouble is, they had to make that corner.
Oh, my.
And you take that horse and you put that 35-foot lariat on the end of that, and you're getting outside of them corners now. And there were boards, they probably are still there today, but they had like 2x12s on the bottom of the fence. Well, them guys were bouncing off them 2x12 like just, man, they'd hit them things.
Wow.
And then, bounce and then go down and the length of the arena. And as they were making the other corner, and they had to make the 2 corners before they ever got to the stop, or to the end of the finish line there. Well, they were still coming around them corners. And them guys, oh, man, if them horses weren't tight into the inside of them barrels and they were on the outside a little bit, oh, them poor guys took an awful beating against them walls and them bucking chutes. They finally had, I don't think they do that anymore, but I haven't been up there far too much.
Do you know the origins of this? Where the Pony Express, the exchange? I mean, I know the concept of the Pony Express, right, from the Pony Express out west. But do you know what attracted? I mean, these kinds of games to come in there.
Well, I don't know, but we used to do some of them games, something like that. When we were kids horse showing back here. So
I remember that.
They've been around a long time, but they just and they thrive on it. I mean, I'm telling you, them guys up there. They don't care. They practice this. They have a lot of their gymkhanas up there big time. I've seen advertisements of some of the, they'll advertise these big gymkhanas and they'll add 1,400 an event.
Okay.
So they're making money at it, and these guys do it for a living, just like we rodeoed for a living. And their gymkhana, and then then St Tite is their big showcase,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Didn't know that. That's great history. Thank you for sharing that. So when did you last compete, Mike? When was the last years you went up there? Do you remember? Yeah.
It was probably about 90, 96, 97, somewhere in there, I guess.
Okay. And the next time we get together, one of our future calls, I don't want to make any promises here, but meaning, because we thought we were going to cover some of the 90s tonight, at some point, let's remember to fold that in when we're doing the 90s, okay?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at a picture here that's on the New York State Rodeo Museum Facebook page, which, again, I got to give a great big shout out to Betty Johnson, all the work she's done, and all the pictures that have been put up here. What a great way to hang on to the memories. What a great way. But I'm looking at a picture here, and I believe this is 2019. It is their 50th year at St Tite, and it's a picture of you and Sylvain Bourgeois. You are inducted into the St Tite Hall of Fame, champion all-around cowboy. Tell us about that evening.
Well, that was a lot of fun. I hadn't been up there in quite a few years, and a lot had changed from the last time. Sylvain went in there, and Sylvain had hauled with me a little bit, and I'd taken a bunch of rodeos back here. So he got to really learning how professional rodeo was supposed to be run. And Sylvain is a very intelligent man and a good businessman. And I was so glad the rodeo association up there was looking for a new leader, basically. And they actually had even approached me and about trying to take it over. And I said, yeah, there isn't any way from down here I could do it, and I couldn't move up there. But anyway, make a long story short, Sylvain got in there, and it was the best thing that ever happened to him, because he made it a professional rodeo, and he had a lot of good ideas, and he didn't just say, okay, we're just going to have one stock contractor. And a lot of that kind of come around because of the being able to ship animals back and forth across the border. You know, a lot of the blue tongue and some of that stuff with the cattle was going on, and the borders were shut down because of some of that. And so a lot of things made it important to be able to be diversified in the contractors. And Sylvain had enough contacts and had enough business savvy to start getting on the phone and start getting some of these guys. Like I said, even Calgary sent some horses back there now that, you know, Sam took his lion's share of stuff up there, and they all did very well, you know, but he had made it IPRA rodeos and it co-sanctioned some other ones, and it made it a real professional, really type of rodeo. But as far as the Wild West atmosphere, it's still there.
It's still there. Little bit more rock and roll, maybe, right?
A little bit more rock and roll, and you know, a lot more showmanship than there was before. But I could spend 2 days talking about just up there.
Okay. Well, write these things down, because we're going to come back around. We got a lot more conversations we're going to be having. Well, I thank you for that. And congratulations, 2019 St. Tite Hall of Fame. Pretty cool to be part of that great rodeo. So I've got to go ahead.
I'm very humbled.
Yeah.
When I got the phone call, I went up there a lot. I won a lot of money up there, made an awful lot of friends up there, you know, and just not being around back there. And then they gave me that phone call, and I said, yeah. I said, I'll be there. And me and my daughter, Mikey went up with me, and we weren't able to stay long because there was something else going on that I had to get back home for. And otherwise I would have loved to stayed up there. But we went up there that day and watched the rodeo and stuff, and we had to leave the next day. But there were so many friends that I just was so bummed when I left there that I didn't get to spend much time with outside of just a hello and a handshake and how you doing and, roll on to the next one. But a lot of good people up there.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so speaking of Mikey, your daughter, Mikey, she always sends in a bunch of great comments on the podcast, and I really appreciate her listenership. And she wanted me to bring up a few things here. So tell us about skiing, a New York cowboy in Colorado, on the Billy Kidd, downhill skiing kind of a organization event. Tell us a little bit about that, because you were on the front page, right? We got a picture that's been posted up. Okay.
Yeah, the Denver Post, and then actually it was on the rodeo sports news too.
Okay.
Denver, Colorado, Denver Stock Show. I had entered that.
Okay.
And I was out there for that, and I think I had skis on my feet back here maybe once, maybe twice in my life, and it's a little over here in Warsaw, little bunny hill. They called it Honey Hill, and everybody calls it Bunny Hill over here, but it's been long closed down. But it's about the only time I ever went there, and it's just I could ski out my backyard and have a bigger ski slope
right.
than it was. But it's the same ridge, It just the guy liked to ski. But anyway, so I had never skied much, in so Denver. At Denver, they had a promotion there, Steamboat.
Yep.
To the Cowboys. Anybody entered, they could go out and enter and get in the Cowboy Downhill. They got Cowboy Downhill skiing, and heck yeah, I'm going to do it. You can't ski, but I'm going to get on there and go. And when I went out and entered there, I was entered up during the middle of the week. So what the guys I went out with, they went out first and last, at 2 go-rounds. So I just stayed there during the week, so I was able to go to the Cowboy Downhill. And so I went out to that, got entered in that, went down there with that picture. I go over there, and I don't know nothing about skiing, and I look at this hill, I see all the things, and I knew I didn't know how to stop and didn't know how to turn, and I've seen a little bit on TV how they jump from side to side, and all that.
Right.
So I kind of ease over, and there's a group of little squirts. I mean, 5, 6, 7-year-old kids that have got skis on, and they're all in a group, and I see a couple of adults on. I'm going to ease over there. That might be a little class or something that's going on. So I ease over there, and I'm kind of standing off to the side listening to them. And it is this little small instruction of a bunch of these little kids how to ski. So they all start going off with a ski instructor kind of back behind, and I kind of ease over there to him. I said, "Hey, look, buddy, I'm in the Cowboy Downhill, and I don't know how to ski.
Right.
How do I turn? How do I stop?" So he shows me a little snowplow deal with the skis, point your toes in. My toes don't go turned in. I've been riding bucking horses and bulls. My toes go out.
Right.
And so anyway, he shows me that. He says, "Then get on the edges of your skis and you lean and you turn and, and this, do this and that." And I said, "Well, anything else I need to know?" He says, "Yeah. When you come to the jump, now the jump is probably only 4 feet off the ground. It's not much of a big one, but he said, now when you get to the jump, he says, you got to get your hands in front of you, get out over the top of your skis and kind of squat, and don't stand up straight." He said, "Just stay squatted, and then hit the ground and let your knees do the shock absorber thing, and you'll be good."
Yeah.
Okay. So we get up to the top, and they got me paired up with this little Texas bull rider from Texas.
Yeah.
He ain't never skied in his whole life. The first time he'd ever had skis on. Well, me and him, so we're talking. He said, "You ski much?" I said, "No, I ain't never skied." And he said, "I haven't either." He said, "So let's just do this. Let's just go down real slow side by side, and we'll just kind of stay with each other, and we'll just kind of cross the line together." I said, "Cool idea.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm good with that." Well, I start out, the gates open, we start down, I push off and start down the hill. Well, I don't know much about skis, but these son of a guns must have been greased up with some rockets. that Chevy Chase deal where he gets on the flying saucer and goes shooting down the hill and the flames fly. That's well, I got to the first, there was like 2 or 3 they call gates, cones that we had to go around. Well, I hit them and I'm just gaining speed. And I can't slow down. I don't want to be going this fast.
Yeah.
And I'm going and going. Well, I come to the jump. So I says, okay. And I'm going through my mind. Okay, get down, crouch down, hands in front, stay bent, don't stand up straight. And I get up and my ski tips go over. And I got a picture of my ski tips just going over the edge. And I'm perfect. I'm perfect position.
Yeah.
Well, the next picture is what you see.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I got over the top and I went, whoa! And I stood straight up and down as I was coming down, and I hit the ground. My feet went over my head, and I lost my skis. They had spotters down there at the bottom of the jump there.
Yeah.
They caught my skis, and I got one ski on, and I'm going to put the other one, and the guy goes, good, go! And he slaps me on the back, gives me a shovel. I fall down again anyway.
Yeah.
Now here comes this little Texan that we were supposed to be going together. He goes over the jump, and he's kind of going down. He's down ahead of me now. So I get back on, and off I go again, and I'm going down through there. And the next stop, you got to go through there. The next stop is, was it a horse? Yeah, I think they had a tripod with a rope.
Okay.
And a wooden tripod with a rope on it. So you're supposed to stop and grab that.
Yeah.
So I kind of plowed through them, got that. Then the next stop, there was a horse, and you're supposed to stop, throw a saddle on the horse, and the girl was standing there holding the horse, and all you did was just sling the saddle on it,
Okay.
And then from there you go down to the finish line.
So while you have your skis on, you have to saddle a horse?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
That sounds dangerous, what that sounds like.
Well, it was really dangerous when I went underneath the horse.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, wow.
I lost my skis were off. I was sliding downhill. I went right underneath the horse's belly, wind up on the other side. I get up and get the saddle, throw it on there. Well, now both skis are gone, so I just ran down across the finish line. The little kid from Texas was down there waiting for me.
Okay.
I had so much trouble falling down. That was a riot. And then after that, I went up and was skiing by myself up there, and they had another side of the whole other side of the hill. Now this side we were at, it's all packed down, and they groomed it and everything. Well, on the other side of the mountain, a little bit over there, a little bit farther, you get up your chairlift and you get up there, and it was all powder. It was 5-6 inches deep of powder and stuff, and it was just really pretty up in there. I said, I'm just going to get off by myself, and I'm just going to go skiing up here, just try to enjoy it, everything else, and just kind of calm down a little bit. It wasn't no big deal anyway, but I was up there skiing around and come down around this one curve, and I'd fallen down 3 or 4 times. I wasn't used to the snow getting up over the top of the skis. You couldn't see where they were at, and stub your toe down.
Yeah.
And I was up there just really enjoying myself. And what made the day is I run into a couple guys up there, and they just two old buddies up there skiing together up there, and one guy had a hat on, and he looked familiar. And the guy that had the hat on, they both had hats on. Now I stop and think about it. But anyway, guy looked familiar, and he said, "You just in the Cowboy Downhill?" I said, "Yeah."
Yeah.
No, that was fun, wasn't it? And I said, "Yeah." And guy sticks his hand out. He says, "I'm Larry Mahan."
Oh,
and
wow.
wow. And I said, "I'm Mike Swearingen." He said, "I kind of heard of you." And he said, "And this here's Billy Kidd."
Yeah.
He was the Olympic downhill skier. You got to be kidding me. I said, that was an honor. That was really an honor.
Isn't that
so
neat?
that
Two legends.
That made my trip. That was the whole thing. Really enjoyed that.
Wow. Well, I'm looking at the picture here. It's on the Denver newspaper, and it says the headlines is Slide 'em Cowboy.
Yeah.
And your hat's falling off. You got great sunglasses on. And are you wearing chaps?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, see, that was part of the deal in the
Yeah.
Cowboy Downhill. You had to wear your chaps.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, my. What a wonderful story. So thank you, Mikey, for pointing us at this story. And Mike, I really appreciate our conversation tonight. We've covered a lot of ground. There's so much more. I've got a list here that is incredibly long, but I want to thank you for some great stories tonight. And we'll do this again.
Yeah, well, I got one more ski story when we got time. You won't have time now, but no, we'll do that another time.
Okay.
But I had 2 big skiing incidents.
Okay. I will put that on the list.
I don't put them on no more.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And then one other subject I want you to get prepared for. We're going to talk about. You rode bulls, you rode barebacks, and on occasion, a cowboy can get hung up. So bring your hang-up stories with you the next time, if you would, please. And maybe you never were hung up. I don't know.
Yeah.
But what's the odds, right? What's the odds? Oh, this has been excellent, Mike. I really appreciate it. And anything you want to say to our listeners tonight before we say goodnight?
No, I'm glad that everybody, that is listening, I hope they enjoy it. These are real life stories that we've had out on the trail, that we've had more fun than people. I've been so blessed to be able to have this type of life, and it's just something that most people could only dream of and can't even fathom some of the situations we've gotten into and how we've had to get out of them and stuff. And I've got friends from one end of this country and Canada, and I'm just so blessed to have that amount of time to be able to rodeo that long and meet that many people. It's been great.
Well said, my friend. Well said. Mike, it has been great. Good evening.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening. Be safe. Stay cool up there.
Yep. It's been nice weather here lately, so we're doing good.
All right, my friend.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
In our next episode, maybe we can get to what we thought we would cover in this episode. We will talk to Mike about the 1990s. We have so many more topics to cover with Mike, and his closing says it all. A great life full of experiences that Mike shares so well with us. More to come in the future. Now, I've added some links from my research in the notes for your review. And to make your listening easier, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Search for Beyond the Chutes and follow us. Reminder, check out the New York State Rodeo Museum Facebook group page and become a member. It has inspired this show. We also have a Facebook page for Beyond the Chutes. Become a friend and like, follow, say hello, drop us some comments. And we'd like to say thank you to ParaSight Systems for their support of our podcast. Now, ParaSight Systems is a push-button parasitic diagnostic system for pasture animals, horses, cattle, goats, sheep, chickens, and for your companion animals, your dogs and your cats. Get focus on treatment. Get the data you need to properly treat your animals for the exact infestation that they are carrying us. You can find them at ParasightSystems.com, and we have a coupon code that you can use when you purchase a kit. It's BTC023. This is Beyond the Chutes. Until next time, this is Doug Simcox. Thank you for listening.